Good evening. Would you please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance? Councilman Rogers, please.
Let us pray. Our God, our Father in heaven, we thank you for this day, for the blessings you've given to all of us here tonight. We pray tonight that you'll be with us and guide us as we go about the business of the city. We continue to pray for those serving the armed forces abroad, serving in harm's way. Be with them, guard them, protect them. These things we pray in Christ's name. Amen.
Councilman Neal, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On the public forum this evening, we have three that have requested to speak. So, Jack Mathers, you'll be first.
How you doing? I just wanted to stop and basically I've told you for the last several months about the Friends of Vienna that we were working to get the group established, and I wanted to let you know, give you an update where we're at. That as of this week, it's completely established. The paperwork's all been filed, all been accepted, and we are declared a 501c3. So really want to thank Russ too, because Russ did several evenings with us on trying to get the paperwork done. And I thought I'd take just a second. I really want to have the group here to you in the future, but I'll let you know who the members are because, you know, we've been asked a little bit about who's on the Friends and everything. So the vice president of our group is Jody Hopkins with Washington Prime, you know, from Grand Central Mall. Teresa Smith with the city is on there as a secretary. Melissa Winston is a treasurer. She's with Scott's Landscaping. Lisa Johnson is accountant with PDJ Accounting here in Vienna. She's going to be on the commission with us. Lindsay Pearsall, the executive director of the Wood County Development Authority, is also serving on the group with us. I want to let you know right off, one of the things we're trying to get started. So getting membership is one of the key focuses right now that we're developed. We're meeting, and we've got several different approaches that we're going to try to get memberships. One of the things that we are talking about, it's in the planning for the city of Vienna, is on May the 16th, we're looking about having a cleanup on Grand Central. Partially just to try to get people out there that we're going to get T-shirts. We're looking about T-shirts and sponsorship for those T-shirts to where they'll have the names of companies sponsoring it. It'll be something visual, be on Grand Central. And we'll be having some sign-ups for membership there for individuals. We are going to have a business membership level. And one of the things I mentioned about the T-shirts were roughly the cost is going to be somewhere for $113 or so. We're going to try to raise the funds for that. As I said, we'll go to businesses and try to sell advertising on the back of the shirts. One of the other things that we could do is, you know, if people running for office, just as an idea, people running for office wanted to take out an ad on the shirt somewhere, that would be arranged too. We'll have a fee for that. So, but all this, you know, it parallels what the Tree and Beautification Commission, some of the stuff that it's doing, and yeah, I think it's something that's exciting. It's overdue. The area is ripe for it. We've had businesses talking to us about, you know, what's the Friends group, what's it going to be, what's it going to do, where's it headed. Several individuals. I had some individuals approach me the other day, and it shocked me. They said, "We understood you're having a Friends group. The city's getting one started." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "We pretty much got the board in place." And they said, "We're not interested in being on the board. We just want to be worker bees," was what they said to me. And I said, "Well, that's great." And they said, "Yeah." They said, "That's what we do. We want to bring other people into the group to work with us," and they're excited about, you know, the 16th. So I think it's going to be a pretty neat thing. It's great, the people that are on the board. I mean, you can't believe it when you go to board meetings and people have already thought ahead and done stuff. You know, like one of the girls showed up and she already had our logo made for the city of Vienna. We've had, you know, letterhead designed, all kind of extra work that's being done. So it is in the works, and in the future we want to get back to the council meeting here and bring the membership, some of the membership, if not all, with us, and we're starting to recruit. So just wanted to bring you up to date on it. Thank you.
Jack, thank you for your efforts. I think this is going to be great. Next is Bud Nonamaker.
My name's Bud Nonamaker. I live at 1409 31st Street in Vienna, West Virginia. In February, when the Vienna Library paper come out, it had on there they was going to start doing the taxes on February the 4th. We called down, and they said, no, they're not having it. Well, then a week later, it come out on the community events on TV that they start doing the taxes February the 18th. Well, we waited and we called down. No, they wasn't doing them this year. So I made a trip down to Wood County Library last week. They had 13 people signed up and they was only taking 12. So I went down this week 2 hours before sign up. That was at 3 o'clock. I went down. And I sat down there. I got out of there Tuesday night about 6:30, 7 o'clock. What I'm saying is, who made the decision not to have the taxes done in Vienna this year?
The company that runs the accounting. It was not the library's decision. The group of people that volunteered to do the taxes decided not to do it.
Well, they told me their side of the story, and I told them I was going to ask the question, and they said, well, there's two sides to every story.
There is no side to it, Bud.
They said that they had to be out of there by 8 o'clock. That was it.
That is when the library closes,
8
yes.
o'clock, okay. Why don't we have another spot that we could designate next year for the taxes, like the community building? Or somewhere that they can set up, have the taxes, not have a time frame when they have to get out of there. Because, I talked to several people down there from Vienna. There was even 2 city workers had the city of Vienna on their shirts was there getting their taxes done too. They don't charge to do your taxes. So, looks to me like we could furnish a place for them to set up so that the seniors and other people that can't afford to go down and hire an accountant to do the taxes to have the privilege of getting them done.
You do realize they're all volunteer.
Yeah, they're
and
all
it's difficult to tell volunteers what to do, but we'll see if we can accommodate them if they're willing to do it next year.
I would appreciate it.
Okay?
Okay?
Yes, sir. Jack Eater.
Good evening. My name is Jack Eater. I live at 4301 Sandalwood Place in Vienna. Tonight I have 2 issues I want to address with you all. The first one being, if you remember in October, I came before the council with a concern I had about dogs running at large, unleashed, unchanged, unrestrained in the streets and places like that. During that conversation, I asked, you all agreed that the very next newsletter came out, there would be an article in that newsletter stating, reminding people the dogs have to be confined or released. Newsletter came out, and lo and behold, there was no article in that paper about that. I'm only guessing that evidently this group does not see it as a priority enough to put in the newsletter, or else Hopefully it was just an oversight. So this is my second request. Yes, I still walk. 7 o'clock at night. And yes, there are still dogs that meet me along this roadway at night. Luckily, none have ever injured me. But who's to say they won't? Me or someone else? Could not this be reminded to the citizens of Vienna that there is such a law? I realize it's a low priority for law enforcement, and I don't expect the police officers to go out there and chase dogs. But I am really disappointed that this group found it such a low priority on their agenda that they couldn't even put a 2-paragraph article in the local newsletter to remind people. I get that thing of my water bill. Surely to goodness everybody else gets that thing in the mail. So why can't we do that? I don't think that's asking too much. There's no work. It takes someone 3 minutes to sit down on a word processor and type that out. It is in your code book, folks. If you look in your book, it is there. There is such code for that. Unfortunately, if someone does get injured, hurt, or maybe even killed, the lawsuit will not stop with that landowner or that dog owner or that pet owner. It will keep going on up the food chain until it finds the persons or the party responsible for enforcing that code. Not making a threat, but just bringing it to your attention. So for the second time, could we get such a notice in the newsletter informing the public to please have their dogs leashed, restrained, for the benefit not only of the public, but for the animal themselves?
Jack, I'll take the blame for that. These folks here basically don't put input unless it's an article that comes from a department head. The ladies that write the newsletter, I proofread it, and to be honest with you, I forgot about your request. I've made myself a note here. Chief, if you'd also make a note of that, I'll make sure that we get in the next one. And I apologize. I just forgot.
I would appreciate that. Thank you. The second concern I have is the budget. After reading the local paper, Parkersburg News, that came out in February the 7th, I did read that there's several line item increases requested by department heads. If you total all these increases up, and my math isn't too good, so I got a calculator up and added them up, and it's $1.6 million increases. This has been asked for in the budget. I have them broke down here, and I'm going to read them one by one.
You
I
have
would
3
like to
minutes, Jack, so please budget your time.
Pardon me?
You have 3 minutes, so please budget your time.
Well, then I'll just read fast.
There you go. That's great.
Item by item, City Council requesting $135,000 more dollars. Beautification, $10,000 more dollars. Tree Commission, $29,000 more dollars. Street has 2 line items, $445,000. Replace a vehicle, $531,000, which I would hope the insurance would have covered, but evidently it didn't. Human Resources, $4,900. Senior Citizen, $28,600. Civic Promotion, $19,800. Parks has 6 line items, $342,000+. Recreation, $125,000. Total, $1,671,332. These are increased line items, and it's, unless the lady wrote the article wrong, it's in this paper right here. This does not reflect the police or fire departments. Like, know where the money's coming from. Folks, that's a lot of money, $1.6 million. I, as a senior citizen, live on Social Security and a small state pension. I can't afford to pay more taxes. What's going to happen if the state decides to pass the inventory business tax? We're going to lose money there too? My property tax will probably go up to help offset the cost that's going to raise. So my question is, cannot every one of these line items be gone over one by one? Make department heads justify why this is being asked for. Specifically asked for. Make them verify that. Because I, as a member of this community, deserve to know where my tax dollars are going. Thank you.
I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for February the 27th, 2020. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll, that all members of council are present. Having a quorum, we will proceed. The report of the minutes from the February 20th, 2020 meeting have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are no objections, and the minutes will stand approved as posted. The report of the treasurer will be given at the first meeting in March, so we will go right into our agenda this evening. We have nothing under unfinished business. Our item this evening for discussion is the budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. Before we start this evening, I would simply like to thank Amy Roberts, our finance director, for all the work that she's done in compiling all the data that she does to make the estimates. I'd also like to thank the department heads. The budget that we have been presented with was out of balance, $1,520,065. So obviously our first spot to go back to is the department heads and ask them to review the requests that they've made and really cut it down to what the basic needs are. Every department needs things, but there are some things that just have to be replaced or projects that have to be completed. So I thank all the department heads for their work. I know that you don't want to lose those items, but you also realize that we do have a limited amount of dollars. The budget that we have this year in the form that it's in is a total $50,000 increase over last year's budget. Only $50,000. We're still under $10 million for our budget. So it's not it's not like a larger city. Some of them are, Parkersburg's budget's $32 million and we're still under 10. The budget that we are going to discuss this evening, there are two items that are still not in finals. Amy has used the ad valorem tax numbers. When we finally get those from the county, they'll probably vary a few $100s, but not very much. They're pretty stable. And so that number won't change very much at all. The second number is the insurance number. I talked with Mark Schwindeman. He should be at our next meeting to discuss the options on our insurance premium. And so the numbers that Amy has plugged in, again, are an estimation of where we think we're going to be on that. But we will know more once Mark comes in and gives us the options that we have. So I'm hoping that every one of the department heads information got to you all for the things that they removed from their budget. As we sit here this evening, I have before me a balanced budget, but that is my choices that I made. And so tonight we're going to open it up for discussion from the council members. Hopefully you've done your homework and talked to the departments that you represent and you know what their needs are. And so with that being said, I'll open the floor for discussion on the balanced budget or on the budget that you would like to see for the upcoming year.
Mayor, is that documentation supposed to be in our Dropbox as far as what they came back with to make their revisit reductions? Because I have not seen that. I've gone through.
They have until Friday.
Okay, so we do not have that then at our disposal to discuss, correct?
If the window's not closed until Friday, okay?
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought you said that we had that. Without that information, it's kind of difficult to have much of a discussion, but there is a couple of things that I wanted to discuss pertaining to the budget. And there again, I'm a little bit at a disadvantage because I don't know what's been removed and what's not been removed. But with that being said, I believe the process as it goes with the budget, and I'm just going to use a couple of examples and nothing more than just as an example, no other meaning intended. I believe Chief Scholl gave a presentation for the fire department, and I assume that Chief Scholl, I assume that was a budget that you provided to the city. Yes, sir. And the same thing with Chief Pfeiffer. He gave a presentation, and I'm assuming that was a budget provided and prepared, I should say, by the chief. With that being said, and I say that to bring it to the council budget. Council budget was presented by the mayor, but at the same time, to the best of my knowledge, there was nobody on council involved in preparing our council budget. And if they were, I'm unaware of it. And I say that to say this, there's at least 2 line items, if they're still on there, that I certainly would not have been in favor of being on the council budget. One would be the purchase of the house on 29th Street. The other being the track at Spencer's Landing. Even though the track, I think, is something that at some point in time will be a great thing, and there's a lot of potential development down at the Spencer's Landing site. However, for the sake of repeating myself, we have on Rosemar Road ball fields that we had to cancel games last year because the fields were not in a playable condition. We lost a state contract because those fields were in disrepair. We have a swimming pool that was open and closed because it's in disrepair. We have a kiddie pool that's been closed for an extended period of time because it's in disrepair. And I guess I'm saying all that to say this: we need to start taking care of what we already have. We need to start fixing what we've already got before we start spending money on new. And so there again, that's council's budget, but I think I want to make it clear to everybody that that's not council's budget. That was a budget that was submitted with the name and the heading of council, but I don't know about the rest of you, but I was not involved in that process.
I've got
Mr.
a
Leach.
comment. Yeah, with respect, so let's start with the house that's beside the senior center. I actually live now on the corner of 28th Street and 8th Avenue, across from Spencer's Park and the senior center. And when this greenhouse was mentioned, I really didn't know what that was or understand, because it was the first time it had been mentioned. So I took it upon myself to go look what we're talking about. And as I understand, that's owned by an out-of-state individual, and he's asking for an amount of $60,000, which is above the appraisal amount.
That is correct.
Right. But let me tell you what I see every day. And I mentioned this to Bruce when I came in this evening. I cannot believe the amount of participation, the amount of parking every day that's around that senior center. All right. And any of you that has listened to me since I've been on council, my test is always, are we delivering value to our citizens in terms of the services that we're providing? Sounds like we're getting held up a little bit by the guy that owns this house, okay? And so I don't know what the circumstance is, and I've actually kind of made a mental note to look into it, but I do know there is a demand for parking at the senior center, and it is the senior center, so the people that are using that are not able to perhaps often walk that amount of time. So, you know, with respect to that property, I don't have all the facts I want yet to make a decision about what we should do, but I'm telling you that there is demand for parking at the senior center, and that that is definitely a service the city offers that is very much utilized. You know,
Well,
with respect to Spencer's
I'm
Land,
sorry,
good,
Jim, I
good.
apologize. Go right ahead.
No, go ahead, if you had a comment about that.
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
You know, with respect to Spencer's Landing, the $100,000 that's put in the budget, if any of you saw the article that Madeline wrote with respect to roaring into the 20s, which I thought was very well done all the way through for the paper, by the way, that really highlighted the things that are going on in the valley. You know, the update with these PCBs, and I think a part of the mayor's intention in putting some money into that budget, we don't know what's going to go on with that, because those pieces, what this is, the transformers that were there at the entrance to the Manville plant, all right, up until 1979, they used, and Henry will understand this, they used these polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs, to lubricate those transformers, and when a transformer would blow, all right, then you'd get these spills. And we've got that area right there, and there's a level that takes us from out of the DEP into federal EPA regulation on it, and that's what we're looking at right now. And so I think a part of this budget, we've got a little bit of uncertainty on what's going to happen here. right now. And the other thing is with structural resources, when they originally had this project, all right, we all know, they didn't do much. They basically came in, cherry-picked the site, left it in a mess, and left. And and quite frankly, and I don't have a problem putting this on the record, the DP allowed them to do it. And so we've got an uncertainty there that's concerning me about what it's going to take. And this isn't a very big area. Like I say, it's under these transformers right there at the site. So I think a part of that is, with putting some money in the budget for that uncertainty. And I'm happy to discuss with anybody in council or anybody in the public about what we're looking at. What we're searching for right now are records. Because if we can demonstrate a couple of things that we can't find right now, that we're researching about what record keeping was supposed to be done by the DEP, by structural resources, that would allow us to, kind of get a handle on this, and we're not finding it. We've done several FOIA requests from several different entities, from the DEP, the EPA, every entity that might have it, and we're currently looking in records that we have to see if we can find things. So I think there's a little bit of a contingency that we need, and so, and then transitioning to Spencer's Landing, I understand Roger's point with respect to maintaining the property we have, but we also, Tim Archer, virtually often says the citizens of Vienna want to continue to develop this riverfront amenity that we have. What are we doing with that? And I think putting something in the budget toward that, which isn't a big number, relative to both this issue with the closing out the site as well as trying to develop some of the things people want in the city. So, and I get it, and your point's well taken, sir, that, as far as the 1.6, but that's about what we're out of balance. So obviously this is going to come down, probably close to the number that you were talking about. So, balancing these interests and the needs of the citizens, maintaining what we have, as well as continuing to develop those things that, again, have always been my test of, what's being utilized, what services are actually in demand by our citizens, and I think that we have a pretty good track record of funding those things that are fully participated in. And I get the point, we've got, and you mentioned, Parks Department, the and different things that are in need of things that are worn out. So a couple of points I wanted to make about that. I went on longer than I wanted to, but these things are important to me, and I like I said, I'm just so impressed at what I see at that senior center. And they are tight on parking.
So I guess what I'd like to do now is so everybody's on the same page, is take you down through the numbers so you can remove some of these things out of your thought process. Amy, if you have your sheets with you, you don't have them with you. All right, so I'm going to do them by department. And if you see something that I've not explained properly, please raise your hand and correct me, okay? All right. So we'll start with the council thing that Councilman Conley made reference to. That line item is number 410. And, basically that line item was set years ago for any project that didn't fit into any of the other budgetary departments. It's not really specifically a council line item. It's not council's playground or whatever you want to call it. This is simply where projects that don't have anywhere else to go kind of get put in here under that heading so that the numbers can be accounted for. But under 410, I've removed the $60,000 request for the purchase of the house on 29th Street. I believe that I can get that done if council's on board with that project by using grants and other means so that we won't take those funds out of the general fund. The $100,000 for Manville is still in there. That's one of those things right there that if you don't put money aside, we're never going to get started on that project. And we also have other expenses that we don't know what the outcome of that will be. So that's just a cushion. I believe in last year's budget, and I don't know that for a fact, but I believe last year was $75,000. But at any rate, so it's a slight increase over that. But it is used every day by multiple people. And I do believe that a walking trail along the river would be an advantage to the people that live here. So that's the 410 council line item. Moving down to building inspection, the vehicle that was requested at $32,000, $20,832 of that has been removed. If we go out and finance that for 3 years, it adds $11,000 to the budget. So as you're counting up the dollars that are being removed out of this, when we get done, the total will be almost $1,500,000. So, moving on down to the data processing, which is line item 439. There again, the vehicle has been removed out of that line item. If it is council's desire to finance that, it reduces that $30,000 amount down. It would be $19,000. And I don't believe that's a correct number, Amy. I don't think that's a third. If we finance that for 3, were you working off? Thank you. All right. So it would be 10,000 for that instead of 30,000. The other 2 items, the computers and the website rebuild, are things that we have to do to maintain our network. Moving down to the police department, those 2 police cruisers are still in there. The budget would go from 104,000 down to 36,000. We would finance those for 3 years also. The next item is 500, which is the fire department. The fire alarm system is a necessity, and the air tanks is a necessity, so those line items are still in there. The utility pickup truck has been removed. It would be financed for 3 years, the same as what the other one is, and I believe that would put $11,000 or 14, whatever it is, back into the budget there. Moving down to line item 540, which is the Parks Department. Item number 57 was replacing 2 sets of bathrooms. After discussing it with the department head, we've decided that it could be cut in half and rebuild one of the bathrooms this year and one of the bathrooms next year. So that's a $40,000 reduction. The Wesley shelter would stay in there. That is the last shelter in the parks that have not been rebuilt. So that one would stay. In the item 58, the 2 large playground pieces, there again, splitting it up, removing one of the projects and putting one this year and one next year would add $35,000 to the budget instead of $85,000. The concrete benches at Lake Betsy have been removed. The Neil Cook Cemetery, the last part of that, the 4th wall that goes around it, is still in the budget. We have 2 grants from SAMS to cover about 25% of that project, and so it is still in there. The 1-ton diesel truck has been removed, and the skid steer has been removed. Moving down to there is a last item is item number 59. That is a walk-behind mower. That is $5,800. That item has been removed. Moving down to recreation, 541. There was a storage building for pickleball nets and equipment of $15,000. That has been removed. Item 58 is resurfacing and repair of the tennis and basketball courts. There are cracks. Even though the surface itself is in good shape, there are cracks in the surface that need to be repaired. So that line item is still in there. We are trying to maintain the excellent condition that those are in. Moving down to the streets department. The street department line item for street paving projects was $850,000. It has been lowered to $550,000. The 8th Street repair project, where we've had all the issues with the flooding, it has been removed. We will move that over to stormwater and take that full amount out of the stormwater account. The next item is a 3/4 ton pickup truck for $40,000. It has been removed, and it will be in the financing for $13,900. The vac truck is the critical element that's in this, and that is line item 59. That is a $500,000 item. We have made that so that if you finance it for 7 years instead of the typical 5, that it will reduce it down to $80,000 instead of $500, $79,280 actually. And the Ford SUV has been removed from the budget. The conflict monitors, which is 581, are still in those. We need those for our traffic lights. And so by removing those items that I discussed and financing the other items, that reduces the budget by $1,500,508, and that gets us approximately within $18,000 of being balanced. Each one of you has things that you would like to add in or things that you would like to examine as far as department requests, and all of those can be altered. But the bulk of the budget, if you accept those changes there, is balanced pending the ad valorem numbers and the insurance numbers. Mrs. Roberts, how'd I do? Fairly well? I'll take that. I thought she said very well, so good. Bruce?
I just want to caution, in the Parks Department where you talked about the restrooms, the one restroom at the BMX track was not paid for by us or as a city. It was a Land, Soil, and Conservation Fund or something like that. So you might want to have to check on that as far as that is concerned. And if there's anything replacement, I mean, you have to go to the state and all this other paperwork to go through because of it. So if that one is to be replaced, you ought to be cautious about that one.
I agree with you. Norm was very good on that stuff. He knew that land and water grant very well. They are very picky about what you do. Once you get money from them, you're married to them. But at any rate, the Spencer Park restrooms, I believe, are the one that would be replaced this year.
Okay.
And then we'll make sure that we do the other one in the right fashion.
Yeah, just be
But thank
cautious.
you. I mean, you obviously have been there a long, long time, so you know more about that, but thank you.
Okay.
I don't even know where to start. There's so much that I look at here that in my mind absolutely makes no sense. And I understand when you talk about, and I'm going back to the Spencer's Landing and the $100,000 that at some point in time you have to start. But there's also a situation of prioritizing our funds. You know, the same thing can be said. We've talked numerous times about a 5 and a 10-year plan. In order for a 5 and a 10-year plan to get started, some point in time, we got to start putting the funds aside to do the 5 and the 10-year project. Where's those funds at in this budget? You know, and I look at vehicle after vehicle, misleading to the point that they're not removed, they're being financed. It just amazes me how often I sit here and I hear that, well, that vehicle's scheduled to be replaced. It's X amount of years old and it's got 80,000 miles on it. I would welcome any of you to come and look at my fleet of vehicles. They've got anywhere from 150 to 250,000 miles on them. I run them every day. I run them all over the country. I take care of them. You know, I'm continually hearing, well, it's not feasible to fix. The motor's out, the transmission's out, the rear end's out. How in the world do we continue having vehicles with 80,000 miles on them that's no older than that are constantly beyond repair? I don't know. It makes no sense. And we reduced the paving from 850 down to whatever that number was, 600,000. We are not prioritizing where our funds need to go. I absolutely refuse to believe that we need to be purchasing all of these new vehicles, with the exception of the police department. If we need the best cruisers that the chief can get, I'm all fine with that. But when it comes to some of these other departments, let them use the ones Chief Pfeiffer's trading in or hand them down. We don't need a new vehicle for everybody in this city. And the way that we're spending money in these budgets, I've said it for the last 2 years, I'm going to continue saying it. It just absolutely defies logic that we continue spending the money the way we're spending our money. And, you know, we talk about the citizens. You know, somebody up here is talking to a whole lot different citizenry in this city than I am. The citizens that I talk to in this city are absolutely fed up with the way the money's being spent. And I don't have anybody coming up and patting me on the back and saying, great job for all the money that you're spending. Quite the contrary. So, I mean, I think we need to start with this budget. And I've said it for 2 years in a row. Obviously, we're not going to do it tonight. I don't care if we schedule a Saturday. We need to start with this budget, start at the top, go line by line, pick it apart, dissect it, and fix it.
Yeah, It is. I mean, I know, Randy, you were talking about taking these things out, but they're still in there. I mean, there's 9 new vehicles that the city wants to purchase. I mean, that's a lot of money. Yeah, we finance it, but still we're going to pay for it. Yeah, we're breaking out over 3 years, but still that money's coming out. And that's one of the things I said in the newspaper about, our 5 and 10 year plan. We're not putting money aside for these things. So yeah, we talk, like I say, I keep reiterating myself about there's 9 new vehicles in this budget. I mean, out of the budget, but they're still going to be purchased. So the money's going to be spent, but it's just a matter over time. So it's not really taking them out of the budget. I mean, but here we are. We're supposed to come and talk about the budget, but we don't really have the stuff to talk about it because I like to go. We've talked about this for years, going line by line with this stuff, and there's some salary increases that I didn't agree with, and there's nothing here about that. So I guess we'll have to wait till next week till we have our next budget thing because I don't have the correct information to ask.
The salary information is in the Dropbox.
The only one's the HR, right?
No, there were 2 others.
Oh, and the additional police officer.
Yeah,
What
I
was
got
the other one?
police officer. I didn't see the.
It's this one.
Right, 3. You're right.
So the wage increases for the employees of the city are basically just the 30 cents that's mandated by code, 35. But that's where they're stopping as far as this year's concerned.
Yes, other than the spreadsheet that I gave you. In the
Correct. I understand. Thank you.
Okay, so the only ones that are asking for increases were the additional officer, which I'm cool with. HR is asking for $7,000 raise. I guess that's really that. I know. I mean, when she made her presentation, that's one of the stuff that really stuck out with me. I mean, when she gave her explanation about, she compared her salary to Chief Pfeiffer and Chief Scholl and things like that. That's not in the same category. It's HR versus, and nothing demeaning against HR because it's a very important position. But to come out and ask for a $7,000 raise after you've got $1 an hour raise the last 2 or 3 years that I've been here, and that's just, I mean, $7,000 is a hunk of change. I mean, I don't know why one person feels more entitled than the other. When I just started a new job and I agreed to my salary, and to come back years later and say, well, I want more money. Well, you signed up for this job, this salary, and to come back and, $7,000 could be spent on a lot more people than this one person. So I have a real problem with giving someone a flat $7,000 raise, just because you feel somebody's got to be the lowest paid employee on a department head. I mean, if it's not her, it's going to be somebody else. So what keeps that person from coming back and saying, well, I don't want to be the lowest paid person in the city, but to have that as your excuse or your bargaining table because you're the lowest paid and you're comparing them to different entities, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I wouldn't vote for that.
I would like to know also, and I'm sure I probably can't get this information here tonight. I'm not asking for it off the cuff, but I guess I'd be curious, how many vehicles do we have inside the city that are currently under a previous budget and still being paid for through the finance?
So let's talk about that for a minute. For example, with the IT department, all right, I think since we've taken seats in council, the IT department has been requesting a new vehicle. This is the first time I've heard it being proposed as being still in the budget, okay? After, did you mention the IT vehicle being financed over time? Over 3 years? It's out again.
All right,
It's out again.
well.
All right, if I heard there were probably how many vehicles, Mayor, that you took out of the budget that were requested by various departments? When you're talking about prioritizing these things, and you're talking about the HR department, for example, and the raise for Stephanie. Okay, this was all cycled through and it was voted down again. Roger was the swing vote on taking her raise out. We've increased raises for other department heads, other employees. You compare what she does to the chief of the fire department or the chief. I think those guys appreciate pretty much what the human resource department does to manage this city. And also it's a comparison as to what, a comparable position in other municipalities are. And in fact, Stephanie did that comparison and we were provided that 2 years ago. So I don't have a problem. And in fact, like I said, We've turned that raise down for her a couple of times now. So when you mention that as being an excuse that you took this job and this is the money you made and so on, her job description has changed since Stephanie working for the city. With respect to the 5 and 10-year plans that you guys are talking about, those are in place. Works has. I've seen we are looking forward, and as we move through this budget process, and we are implementing a part of our 5 and 10-year plans in moving forward to offer these services or these increases or purchases that we need for the city. That's a part of it. And it takes, if you have a 5-year or 10-year plan, so I invite both of you. Get the budget. We'll have it tomorrow, Amy? I'll meet with you at your convenience. Me, I would say, okay, not 60 grand, we're going to look at grant money, but I think we're being held hostage by for ourselves. Do you buy used equipment for the city? Do you buy new and try to get it maxed out? I'd ask Craig, for example, when you got a backhoe in service, how many hours are you putting on that hoe and what kind of work are you putting it under? It's high demand on that. And I know what you do is the same way. So I invite both of you to sit down, let's get the budget. You want to go through it line by line, I'm perfectly happy to do it with you and debate it. But at the end of the day, we each have a vote. We make a choice on what the priorities, and they aren't just your priorities, all right? They're the priorities of the council, the priorities of the citizens, and I hear people too. You say, nobody's come up patting me on the back? I hear people all the time. And like I said, you look out the doors, you see what's going on with the city. That's such the best example of the use that we provide and all the things that we do in this city that put money into what people use. And that's what our job is, in my view. So, fellas, I invite you, let's get the budget, let's sit down, and let's have it out.
Let's get away from the
Mr.
spin zone and get back to...
Mr. Conley, excuse me. So, when everyone sits up here and talks about the 5-year and the 10-year plan, we have worked diligently on both the 5-year and the 10-year plan, and our 10-year plan has expired. And so our planning commission has been working for the last 6 weeks, reviewing all of the things that are in it. West Virginia University is going to be the facilitator, who is also working with Wood County to make sure that all the statistical data and everything that comprises the makeup of our area is accurate. So the 10-year plan that we are just finishing up, if you look at the last 5 to 6 pages of that, you will see that we completed almost every item in that 10-year plan. And so as we move forward, the object of a 10-year plan is to find out what the people that live in your town want to have done. And that's the thing that I am looking for from everyone that's sitting at this table, because we're the guardians of the money, but from the people that are out in the audience this evening. You had a presentation made of upgrades to the swimming pool. That's a $3 million project right there, okay? Now, if you want us to focus on a $3 million upgrade for the swimming pool, then that's where we'll put our focus on, okay? If you want a new community building, which is used every day, that project right there is going to be difficult because there's not really a big enough area for the parking that it would need, okay? Spencer's Landing. It's called Spencer's Landing, but the problem is it's really Johns Manville. We have to remember that we still have the other part of that to deal with. Would I like to make improvements to the riverfront? Yes, I would. The drawing that's up there on the wall that has the boat ramp and all of the other things that go with it. Yes, that's a very expensive project. And Mr. Connolly made reference to the baseball fields over in Jackson Park. The baseball fields are fabulous. They're nicer than most of the baseball fields in the state. Unfortunately, they lie in the floodplain. So every time that it rains, we get all the water coming off the hill that runs through those baseball fields. It's been that way for years. But it will take a large investment to upgrade all of that. So it's not my plan. It's not anyone up here's plan. It's the city of Vienna. And where do you want to spend the resources that we have? Because in the next 10 years or 20 years, we have to keep this town growing. We are a very special town because of all the things that we do here. You know, we've been through these numbers many times. We're the second best city in the state of West Virginia for quality of life. We are the 5th safest city in the state of West Virginia based on FBI crime statistics. And our fire department, without a doubt, is the best of anyone around us. Okay? And it's like our Public Works Department. Those are the hardest working group of men you will ever find in your life. And they do it every day. So that's the challenge that I have. Where do you want to spend your money, and how are we going to get it done? Okay? The 10-year plan's being developed as we speak. And once the Planning Commission gets done with reviewing the procedural part of it, then we're going to have meetings, and we're going to ask you, what do you want to see the city of Vienna do in the next 10 years? We may not get it done, but if we don't have a vision, we have nothing to work towards. And the reference to the vehicles that are in there. Steve, the truck that you've asked to be replaced in your budget is a 1998 model GMC, isn't it? 22-year-old vehicle, right? The trucks that the Public Works Department and all of the other departments have put in there, sure, they probably all have less than 100,000 miles on them, but those are in-town miles that are driven every day. If you would open the door and look at the seats in those trucks, they're gone. These guys are in and out of those trucks, 20 times a day? Minimum, right, Craig? Okay, they just are. I mean, they're like a piece of equipment. They use every bit of them. And when you're hauling crushed stone or you're hauling dirt, they're not going to look like a vehicle that you park in your driveway every night. And so you look at these things, and with Chief Pfeiffer, yeah, we try to average two police cruisers a year, but they run those things every day. The vehicle part of it, it works out that, you don't have to spend a huge amount of money if you finance these things. And, we get them paid for over 3 years. And, that's just the way it works. I agree with Jim. I think the senior center has been a smashing success, and in the years to come, some of the things that are up there, if we want it to continue to grow, you're going to have to give it room to grow. The parking up there is bad. Every street in that area is filled with cars every time they do an activity. I agree with Roger. I think that the pool is a concern. We're not going to be able to take on the major pool renovation this year. It's just not feasible. But the reparations or the repairs that need to be done to those items up there, the swimming pool for the most part is in good shape. It's just dated. The thing was built, 1964, Bruce?
Yeah, 63,
63, 64, okay.
The same plans that were used for our pool up there was used by Parkersburg, and they put a pool over there in Belmont, right above their swimming pool now, and that's been going for probably 30 years. And they built another pool with the Olympic-sized pool down below it, but the same plans that were used on our pool were used over there by the same contractor. But I've been around for a long time. The electric's been done. The pool physical part of it's been redone. If you ever go up there in the summer, there's not really enough physical space where someone can get in the pool. Just thankful that a lot of ladies go up there, they dip in, and then they go sunbathe. So that takes up less space, and that's one of the reasons why we added a big, large concrete apron to it. But the baby pool has had problems many times before because of the buildup of rust on the inside of and to start this year, Mr. Black had a problem because of the pump. And if it wasn't for his work, it probably wouldn't have been open for 2 or 3 more weeks because of the pump went bad. So
it's a $3 million project for a facility that's open 47 days out of the year. We don't have summers anymore because of the school calendar. And so you look at that, and yes, I'm all for the pool. You have to have a pool. It's like public transportation. You have to have bus systems, okay? The town expects us to have a pool. We will. But it just depends on what the community is willing to support as far as how big of an investment do you want to go.
I want to go back, speak briefly about the house. I agree with Councilman Leach, because I see the same thing every day. I mean, by there quite often, and I too am amazed at the activity and the need for the parking. There's no doubt about it. But if I remember correctly, and I believe I do, that house appraised for significant less money. It wasn't a small amount. It appraised for significantly less money than what was approved. So, having said that, I mean, I'm hopeful that, Mayor, whatever your resources are, that to where that could potentially happen, to where the city could end up with that for the purposes already mentioned. Although I hate to see anybody get taken for what I would call a significant amount of money, that's just probably not worth it. And here's the deal: the seller knows that really the only people that benefit from owning that's the city. So kind of holding his ransom a little bit, I guess. So I would hope that in some way, shape, or form, whether we're paying for it, it's being paid for out of grants or whoever, that there be some significant negotiations based on the appraised value and the asking value. Second thing is on the vehicles. For an example, and the one that jumped out at me is the vac truck. Craig, if you don't mind, tell me, the vac truck that you have now, how old is it? Estimate. 7 years? Okay. Okay. Did we ever come up with a figure on if and what insurance was obtained out of that accident?
$52,000.
Okay. I guess what I'm looking at is like life expectancy. I mean, if we finance a vehicle for 7 years and life expectancy's 5 or 6 years, I mean that's not a good return.
Life expectancy of a back truck in commercial use is roughly 6 years. Lead rotation on our 10-year plan is 15 years. So we got longer than that now.
Okay.
What was the extent of the damage to that vehicle, and how did it happen?
The problem was the equipment was so old it was deteriorated, but there's rust, had a lot of rust issues. But when we caught on the guide wire, it ripped the top of the turret off and tweaked the back closing door and the gearbox.
Did we get a rebuild quote to totally rebuild that piece of equipment like the chief did with the fire engine that he did a couple years back?
$214,000
So,
And I can answer that for you, Roger. So basically in West Virginia, what happens? If you have a vehicle that's damaged in a collision, according to West Virginia state law, if the total to repair the vehicle is more than 75% of the market value, it's a total loss. All right, that's a flat. So, and based on if 214,000, they valued it 52, is 15 years old, it was totaled, and no insurance company is going to repair that vehicle.
but with that being said, for $214,000, half the price of what we're spending on a new piece of equipment, we could have had a functional piece of equipment for 50% of the cost that would perform in the same manner.
Well, no, that's not true either. Unfortunately, that back truck, the supplier, which is out of Marietta, so we get it from, the truck itself and the drivetrain of it was outdated. They discontinued that model, and I was not able to get any parts for it. That was the issue with it. Even though they come right on Marietta, and they make the parts. They have, and we're having the same problem with our 7-year-old now. And right now, we have our water tanks are if you guys see the speed thing, the guy drives the boat and has the thing, that's holding our water tanks together, and there's JB Weld holding some of the fittings together in our tank. So,
Well, and I understand perfectly well, Councilman Leach, what you're talking about with the insurance. I think what some of you need to understand and remember and realize is that I am in the manufacturing industry. I build new equipment. I repair equipment every day that the insurance companies have totaled. I absolutely know the value of replacing and repairing. You know, I'm not sitting up here as a doctor talking about a piece of equipment that may or may not be able to be replaced. Folks, this is what I do for a living. No, I don't work specifically on vac trucks. I have multiple dealers that I work with throughout the eastern United States that are municipality related. They absolutely all deal in, even though I don't directly, in sweeper trucks, in vac trucks. I know they're rebuilt every single day. I know what goes through my shop. If the normal person would look at it and say, there's no way that could be fixed, it's not feasible. Folks, I do it every day. So to sit here and to tell me that we have pieces of equipment constantly that can't be redone, it's just not factual. It's very misleading. Well, the reason we're doing it is because we want new. We want to spend the citizens' money. Let's spend $250,000, not $500,000. You know, when we get to the 5 and the 10-year plan, you know, it's not only involve what the citizens want. It involves what the citizens need and what the citizens deserve. The citizens deserve to be able to go down a street that is in good repair. We have absolutely got to do 4 miles of streets every single year just to stay even, based on the life expectancy of a blacktop street that has been properly installed and properly maintained. It's simple math. If we don't do that, and now we're cutting that budget, we're reducing it. You know, we're talking about houses, we're talking about walks, we're talking about all these vehicles, but we're not even spending the money on the streets that we need to stay even with where we're at. And as far as the line-by-line budget is concerned, Councilman Leach, I'm absolutely not in favor of me and you and Mike Elam or anybody else sitting down and doing this. We talk about what the citizens want. Let's just do a town hall meeting. Let's get everybody together.
I remember
Let's
your
invite
last
everybody.
one.
Let's let the citizens tell us what they want. We can have a town hall meeting and we can go over this budget line item by line item, and it won't be me sitting up here talking. It'll be the citizens of Vienna showing up and tell us what they want.
I think that's what this is about. And we have a public comment session, and you know, with respect to the budget, and when you're talking about, how old was that back truck, Craig?
It was, for some reason I'm thinking 17, 18 years old.
17, 18 years old. So you're advocating taking a 17 or 18-year-old piece of equipment, putting $500,000 in it, and trying to put it back in service. You know, all the time we hear people coming in here, and that back truck's used when we have what? Stormwater backups, sewer backups, which and don't we have stormwater and sewer problems in Vienna that we have hear citizens talking about all the time, right? Yeah, just occasionally, right? You know, and so you're advocating putting $250,000 in an 18-year-old piece of equipment that's a total loss. First of all, we would have had to buy it back from the insurance company and retain salvage, right? You understand that? And you know, so you know, that math simply doesn't work for me, and that logic just simply doesn't work for me. You know, as far as we have to continually move forward, and just like, you know, I don't understand why you and Mike never have a problem with replacing, and no offense, Chief, but police vehicles or certain your projects, and yet when you're talking about anything else, you know, it's this is a bad idea. You know, and to try to justify rehabbing that vehicle in that condition, obsolete, can't even get parts. I'm sorry, it just doesn't make any sense.
I could probably save us a lot of time because we're talking about all this stuff. This budget is going to pass 5-2 like everything has in the last 3 or 4 years. So we're talking about little individual things, but it's going to pass. It's going to be 5-2, maybe 4-3. But it's just a history. Leach, you never agree with me. I never agree with you. I probably never will. And I don't want to meet with you privately or individually to go through this line by line. That's what the citizens want. They want transparency.
Yeah, they wouldn't want us to work together, Mike.
No, I mean.
No, but I think the citizens of Vienna would like to know when November rolls around how the people sitting up here on this council have voted to spend their money and how they decide to use this budget to allocate.
All right,
for their
gentlemen,
money.
let's go back to the budget discussion, please.
I think that's what we're discussing.
No, sir, we're not. So we'll go back to the budget, please. You know, the one thing that I have to say, Roger, is I do believe that you have some expertise in the trucking industry, dump trucks, et cetera. No question about that, okay? But that vac truck sat up at Public Works for minimum 6 weeks, unusable. And I don't believe you ever went one time to look at that truck to offer an opinion of something that we might not be aware of. I certainly am not aware of the suppliers that you use, so if we damage another piece of equipment, we'll expect you or ask you to go up and at least take a look at it and say, you know, I know a guy in somewhere that can maybe help us out or whatever, but I don't believe the last truck that was damaged, that you went up and looked at that.
Is
So-
it still up there?
Oh, no, it's gone.
Where's it at?
When the insurance company totaled it out, they took it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's gone, but at any rate, you have the numbers. Amy will post the rest of the numbers to the Dropbox. Mr. Schwindeman will be here to discuss the insurance things. We have no idea yet when the assessor's office will give us the ad valorem numbers, but it won't be long. But as I said, those numbers won't be off, but just a few $100s. They never change very much. So, having said that, any other comments this evening before we move on? All right. With that, that concludes our agenda for this evening. We move on to council comments. Hearing none, then I'll declare this meeting adjourned. Our next council meeting will be a regular meeting scheduled on March the 12th. March the 12th, Amy? Okay.
Hey, bud, how are you? He's doing pretty good. Yeah, he's